On September 5, 2006, Facebook deployed an update at 3 in the morning. By the time American users woke up and opened the site, their social network had been transformed. Instead of navigating to friends' profiles to see what they had posted, a stream of updates appeared automatically on their homepage. Everything their friends had done, ranked and surfaced by an algorithm without the user choosing to look for it. Within 24 hours, 700,000 users had signed a petition demanding Facebook remove it. Groups with names like Students Against Facebook News Feed and grew faster than any protest movement the platform had previously seen. The feature was called the News Feed, and it was, at the time of launch, one of the most resented products in the history of consumer internet. Zuckerberg refused to remove it. He was 22 years old. He had 175 engineering employees, and he had just deployed what would become 18 years later. The architecture through which 3 billion people receive information about the world. This is the Facebook newsfeed algorithm history, and it is a story with 2 acts separated by 15 years, each of which tells you something different about the decisions that make a technology consequential. Facebook in 2006 was not the platform that exists today. It had 9 million users, exclusively college students and recent graduates. Its interface resembled a digital directory. Your profile page, your friends' profile pages, and a wall where people could post messages for others to see. If you wanted to know what a friend had done, you navigated to their profile and looked. Information was found, not surfaced. The problem that the news feed was designed to solve was genuine. As Facebook's user base grew, the probability of randomly checking any given friend's profile and finding something new declined. Users were missing updates from people they cared about because the platform gave them no mechanism to surface what was recent. The engineering solution was the algorithm, a system that continuously monitored what everyone in your social graph was doing and ranked those activities by predicted relevance to you. In 2006, this was implemented with what Facebook called EdgeRank, a formula that weighted recency, relationship closeness, and engagement to determine what appeared at the top of your feed. The 700,000 users who signed the petition were objecting not to the information. It was all information they had already consented to share, but to its automatic surfacing. The argument, made in various forms across the petition groups, was about privacy in a specific sense. The feeling that activity they had posted in one context was now being broadcast in a different context without their understanding of how. Zuckerberg's response acknowledged this. In his Calm Down post, he wrote that Facebook had messed this up, not technically, but communicatively, by not making the privacy controls visible enough before deploying the feature. He did not remove the news feed. He added granular privacy controls. Within 2 weeks, the petition had dissolved. Within 2 months, the feature was the most used element of the platform. Within 12 months of the news feed launch, Facebook's daily active user engagement had tripled. The algorithm had solved the problem it was designed to solve. Users were now seeing relevant content without having to search for it. The feedback was immediate and quantifiable. By 2008, Facebook had surpassed MySpace as the most visited social networking site. By 2012, the year of its IPO, it had 1 billion monthly active users. The news feed algorithm had been refined continuously, incorporating more signals, types of content preferred, time spent on specific posts, incorporating more signals. Types of content preferred, time spent on specific posts, interactions with specific users. Each refinement produced more engagement. Each increase in engagement justified more refinement. This was not a cynical process in its early years. Facebook's internal framing was genuinely about relevance, showing people the content from their social graph that mattered most to them. The early versions of the algorithm weighted posts from close friends more heavily than posts from acquaintances. It was an algorithmic representation of social proximity. By 2013, Facebook had begun optimizing the algorithm explicitly for engagement, measured as clicks, reactions, shares, and time spent on the platform. The distinction from relevance optimization was subtle but consequential. A post that made someone angry was highly engaging. A post that made someone sad often kept them on the platform longer. The algorithm did not know the emotional valence of what it was amplifying. It only knew that certain content kept users on the platform, and it surfaced more of it. The research that would eventually document this had already been conducted. In 2012, Facebook and a team of academic researchers ran an experiment on approximately 689,000 users, adjusting the emotional content of their feeds without their knowledge and measuring the effect on their own subsequent posts. The study, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2014, found that emotional states could be induced by the algorithm. The paper was titled Experimental Evidence of Massive Scale Emotional Contagion Through Social Networks. The Emotional Contagion study was published in 2014. The public reaction was immediate and negative. Users had not consented to being experimented upon. Facebook apologized for the communication, not the research. The algorithm continued. What became clearer only after Francis Haugen document release in 2021 was that Facebook's internal research teams had been studying the algorithm's effects on user well-being for years, and that some of that research produced findings that were not acted upon. Haugen, a former Facebook data scientist, provided internal documents to the Wall Street Journal and later to US and European legislators. The documents showed, among other things, that Facebook's own researchers had identified a correlation between heavy Instagram use and body image issues in teenage girls, that the platform knew its algorithm amplified politically divisive content because divisive content generated more engagement, and that internal proposals to modify the algorithm to reduce divisiveness were reviewed and not implemented. The specific internal research cited in the Haugen documents was more nuanced than the public coverage suggested. Facebook's researchers were genuinely studying these effects. The gap was not between knowledge and awareness. It was between awareness and the modification of the system. The algorithmic optimization for engagement was also the mechanism that generated Facebook's advertising revenue. Modifying it had quantifiable financial costs. The internal deliberations, as documented, showed the tension between researchers identifying harms and business teams identifying costs. This is the structure of the problem, and it is not unique to Facebook. Any platform that generates revenue from attention has an inherent tension between the measurement of harms and the modification of the system generating them. The documentation of this tension is what the Haugen papers provided. That was new. The breaking point in the news feed story did not arrive as a single moment. It arrived as a compressed week in October 2021. On October 4th, Facebook suffered its largest outage in history. 6 hours offline, 3 billion users disconnected. The timing was not connected to the Haugen revelations, but its effect was to demonstrate publicly what researchers had been arguing theoretically, that Facebook had become so central to global communication infrastructure that its failure created a systemic disruption. Businesses whose customer service ran through WhatsApp went dark. NGOs using WhatsApp for field communications in active crises lost contact with teams. The outage was a technical accident. What it revealed was a dependency. On October 5th, Frances Haugen testified before the U.S. Senate Commerce Committee. Her testimony was specific, documented, and delivered with the authority of someone who had spent 2 years at Facebook working on the integrity team. She said, under oath, that Facebook's leadership knew the platform's products were causing harm, particularly to teenage girls, and had chosen not to act because acting would have reduced engagement. The response was bipartisan in expression and limited in legislation. The European Union moved faster. The Digital Services Act, which came into effect in 2023, imposed legal obligations on very large online platforms to assess and mitigate systemic risks, including the risks of algorithmic amplification. This was the first binding legal framework to treat the newsfeed algorithm as a regulated product, rather than an editorial decision. Both changes were smaller than the Haugen documents had suggested were being discussed internally. Facebook, now Meta, reported revenues of over $116 billion in 2023. Its advertising model, which depends on the attention the newsfeed algorithm captures and measures, continues to function as designed. The company employs approximately 70,000 people. By every financial measure, it is one of the most successful technology businesses in history. What the newsfeed story produced was not a corporate failure. It produced a regulatory awakening, the first serious attempt by governments in multiple jurisdictions to treat the algorithmic curation of information as a regulated activity rather than a protected editorial decision. Whether this regulatory framework will be effective and over what time horizon remains genuinely open. The 3 billion users of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, as of 2024, interact daily with a system whose core mechanism has not fundamentally changed since Zuckerberg refused to remove it in September 2006. It has been refined, it has been studied, it has been testified about. The engagement optimization at its center has been modulated, but not replaced. The standard version of the newsfeed story frames it as a story about corporate malfeasance, a company that knew it was causing harm and did nothing. The Haugen documents support some of that framing, but they also show something more complicated. Researchers who were genuinely studying effects they found troubling, working inside an organization whose incentive structure made acting on that research costly. The more precise question is structural. Facebook did not set out to build an engine for emotional manipulation. It set out to build a relevance engine, and the measurement of relevance in an attention economy became indistinguishable from the measurement of emotional activation. Anger, fear, and outrage are among the most engaging emotions. An algorithm that optimizes for engagement without optimizing for something else will find them. The question Zuckerberg did not answer in his 2006 Calm Down post, and that no platform has fully answered since, is, what should the alternative optimization target be? If not engagement, then what? Time well spent? Accuracy of information? Diversity of perspective? Each alternative has its own trade-offs and its own measurability problems. 700,000 people said no in 2006. The algorithm said yes. 18 years later, both things are still true. If you have a view on what the right answer looks like, the comments are open. The full documentation, Haugen's testimony, the PNAS Emotional Contagion Study, and the EU Digital Services Act are all publicly available and linked in the description.